I'm delighted to welcome to the Payment Choice Alliance stand here at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, Yvonne Fovargue, who's the MP of Makerfield.
Makerfield in Wigan, yeah.
Yes, so it's a constituency that's part of Wigan, you were telling me.
It is, yes. Yeah. It's an integral part of Wigan, and it's one of the oldest Labour constituencies in the country.
Is that right? So when does it go back to?
1906.
Oh boy, well that's quite a heritage, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So how have you seen things change in your constituency with, say, banks and ATMs?
We've obviously lost a lot of banks. We've got more ATMs that are charging people to take out their own money.
Yeah.
And they're in the areas where people have the least money, which is wrong.
Which tends to be the case, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Have you still got active post offices to support people?
We do have some post offices, but we're an older population. Some of our sub-postmasters have resigned due to age.
Yeah.
But it's not always the answer with the opening hours, because it's not only individuals who want to use them, it's the businesses as well, and they may operate later than the post office does.
Yeah, some post offices only open very short hours, half days on Saturdays and closed on Sundays. Is that typical in your constituency?
Yeah, so of the older post offices it is, and as I say, it's the businesses, it's the individuals, because it's not encouraging the businesses to accept cash if they can't bank it at the end of the day.
Well, that's what we're finding, and you know, it's an excuse in a way, because there always are ways that they can bank their cash, but obviously if it's been made more difficult, businesses sometimes take the easy option, if you like, and say, oh, we're not accepting cash anymore. What do you think of that?
I think they're disenfranchising a huge number of the public by doing that. And it's people who actually need to use cash. It's not just older people. I had one constituent who never does anything online. She says the only thing she does online is put her washing on it.
Now that's very traditional. She doesn't even have a spinner.
But it's also younger people and young mums who are budgeting with cash, because you can't overspend what you've got in your purse.
Sure, yeah. It's interesting, I used to be a trustee of my local Citizens Advice, and we had young people coming in saying, how do we switch off contactless, because we're just waving the cards and we're spending too much money. Cash stops that happening, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, I was 23 years with Citizens Advice before I became an MP. I managed St Helens.
Oh, right.
And I saw the problems that using contactless and credit actually caused people, and many people did say we want to switch to cash, but the whole point of switching to cash is that people need the choice of where they can spend it as well.
Absolutely, yeah. No point in having access to cash if you're not allowed to spend it. Well, in fact, even at the Labour Party conference here, we've got people wandering around saying, I've got pockets full or purses full of cash, I can't spend it because the venue's cashless. I mean, I think that's wrong, isn't it?
I think it's absolutely wrong. I think it's legal tender, and people should legally be able to spend it where they want.
That's the trouble. The legal tender definition doesn't work, because the Bank of England says, oh, it's only about debt settlement. So we need to modify that, don't we?
We do.
When we talk to people, you know, the picture that's painted by Visa and MasterCard and the banks is that nobody uses cash anymore. But we found in our survey, over 90% of people still use cash. Is that the experience in your constituency, would you say?
I would say most people do use cash, and more would use it, I think, if they had the option to use it in more places as well. But no, people do not want to go completely cashless, and it should be an option.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any businesses in your constituency that only accept cash still?
No, I don't think we have any that only accept cash. I think most of them take cash and credit. But for me, why are they paying the 3% or whatever they're paying to the card issuer and saying we don't accept cash?
Well, exactly. And also businesses are now complaining, you didn't hear too much about this until recently, that they face a thing called chargeback. So if the customer disputes the transaction, the card schemes don't question it, they just accept the customer's word, and then the business has to prove that the transaction was actually carried out, which is very difficult for businesses to do. So in some cases that costs 3% a month. So if you add that to the fees, that can be 5 or 6% the businesses are losing through using cards. It really doesn't make economic sense, does it? No,
it doesn't make economic sense. And why are they restricting the number of customers that they get through the door
at the same
time?
I don't know in your constituency if this is important, but we've noticed that Sainsbury's and Tesco in contrast, they're both banks now as well, retailers. In contrast, the high street banks are actually putting in quite a lot of ATMs. Is that, do you have Tesco and Sainsbury's ATMs in your constituency?
There are some who've put in the ATMs, yeah. I think they've noticed that people are actually budgeting more carefully these days.
Yeah.
And I'd say you can't overspend what you've got in your purse or wallet.
Yeah. And I think the retailers probably realise that if they don't do it, the banks aren't going to do it any longer, you know?
That's right. I mean, the banks are pulling out. I think the banks have some responsibility as well. We need to see what the new regulation is about access to cash, and I'm pleased that there is some, but I don't think it goes far enough.
No, I think it's basically, it was odd, it didn't mention ATMs at all. So it seems to be totally relying on post offices. And of course, post offices have an important role to play, but for the reasons you said earlier, Yvonne, you know, opening hours and so on, they can't do the whole thing, can they?
And a lot of them have shut, and it is very difficult in my constituency to actually find someone who wants to take on a post office.
Yeah, I know. I've been noticing that in several communities, actually. And the thing is, you know, I think it's important for shift workers as well. We have 24-hour access to cash. You can't get that from a normal post office without an ATM. So there's lots of things that are kind of almost conspiring against the public about using cash, aren't there?
Well, there is, and I think there was through COVID, obviously, there was people said, we're not accepting cash because it's dirty. Well, actually, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. That was proved complete nonsense, wasn't it? Another scaremongering story, wasn't it? Well, listen, I'm glad that you're such a supporter of cash and payment choice, Yvonne. Thank you very much for coming along to us today, and I hope we get that payment choice that your constituents need. In fact, every person in the UK needs. Thank you very much.
I know that my all-party group on debt and personal finance will certainly keep pushing for access to cash.
That's excellent. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Thank you.